All right, let's get to a legal opinion. Lawrence Tribe, Harvard law professor, thinks Trump should be working up an insanity defense at a hypothetical trial. We're going to talk about the difficulties of pleading insanity. Business Insider report. Trump's legal team better be able to get him to plead insanity at trial, Harvard law professor says. A Harvard law professor suggested that Trump's legal team should get him to plead insanity if he does go on trial. In a tweet Sunday, the professor Lawrence Tribe, an expert on constitutional law, commented on Trump's video message to the House Select Committee on January 6, 2021. If this is the defense at Trump's forthcoming trial, I don't envy the lawyers who agree to represent him, Tribe tweeted. They'd better be psychiatrists expert at reflexive projection and capable of getting their client to plead insanity. Now, we're going to look at Trump's statement to the January 6th committee tomorrow in more detail. But Trump attacks the committee members as being bad people. He says there was no evidence. He is just a wacky guy. Now, let's talk about an insanity defense. Number one. It's important to remember that an insanity plea is not a get out of jail free card. It's a defense that wants to mitigate the punishment for a crime by arguing the defendant was not in control of their actions due to mental illness. The defendant didn't understand the consequences of their decisions due to mental illness, which means that even if you succeed at defending someone on the basis of insanity, you can still be found guilty and face punishment, like being confined to a mental health facility, for example. Now, I don't actually think any of that's going to happen with Trump. Tomorrow, we'll have Jamie Raskin's recent comments, what he believes is going to happen to Trump. But that's a difficulty or something to understand, I would say, about an insanity defense. One of the biggest challenges in pleading insanity is burden of proof, because in order to successfully argue the defense of insanity, the defendant must present evidence that they were suffering from a mental illness at the time of the crime, that caused them to lack the capacity to understand that their actions were wrong or illegal or whatever the case may be. That is often very difficult to do because the defendant needs to provide detailed information about their mental state and the symptoms they were experiencing. They bring in medical experts, and it's difficult to meet that burden of proof, particularly if Donald Trump is otherwise, quote, functioning, although we would argue he wasn't really functioning, he wasn't really working, but functioning as president of the United States. There's also the stigma that surrounds mental illness, because there are many people who view mental illness as a weakness or a character flaw rather than a medical condition. So even in a case where the defense actually can meet that burden of proof, there are still jurors, as a general people who may end up on the jury, which might not be easily convinced that what they were seeing were the out of control actions of someone suffering from mental illness rather than just somebody who broke the law. So insanity defense is an uphill battle. If it's Trump, I think it's a particularly uphill battle because of the other circumstances I mentioned, in addition to the difficulty of getting a jury that would be neutral enough about Trump's actions that they would really give the insanity consideration the fair consideration that it would ideally get in front of a jury. So I think it's a big uphill battle, and we may talk more about that in the future, but that's Lawrence Tribe's idea.